If worldwide affairs have a place in your day, this is the place you will want to stay. The Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast with your host, world-renowned voice of Garvey and global news commentator, Ron Bobb-Semple.
Greetings and welcome to the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast. We will be addressing global issues that impact our day-to-day lives.
I'm listening.
First you want me to shut up, now you want me to talk? How many personalities you got, lady?
Walking around pretending to be a man? I know what you really are.
You don't know nothing.
I know that leg's shaking.
Why'd you do it?
3 officers dead. How many more lives you plan on ruining?
Well, the merrier.
Bang. It is everything in me not to slap you silly.
That was a scene from The Shield, a crime drama television series focusing in on an inner-city Los Angeles precinct. One of the voices belongs to my special guest, a multiple Prime-time Emmy Nominated Actor. Most of her characters are enriched with positive attributes, strength, confidence, integrity, and strong-mindedness. CCH Pounder, greetings, and welcome to the Ron Bobb-Semple International Podcast.
Thank you, Ron Bobb.
Absolutely. First of all, a Happy New Year to you.
That's right.
You were born on the Versailles estate in Vredenhoop, British Guyana, now Guyana, in South America. You were educated at a convent boarding school in the south part of London. You lived and worked for several years in the southern city of California, Los Angeles. And now you live in a 1925 restored house, which you call the Quarantine Cottage House, your initials, and work in the New Orleans, Louisiana area, the largest city in the south of the United States.
Ron Bobb-Semple, that you pull that off. Congratulations. My God.
What has that journey been like for you?
You know, I hadn't even thought of it in that way, but I know that just incidentally, I've always grown up by a river. Demerara River. I was by the sea in Sussex, obviously by the ocean in California, but always there's water involved in my life, even though I'm a goat. So that's the Capricorn. Apparently, you know, the sign of the Capricorn is the fish bottom. So there's a duality there that belongs to me. It's a mystery journey. I never know what's coming next. I'm a typical troubadour actor who finds themselves in places. But the one thing that I think is different is no matter where I am, I'm a nester. So I make that place home. And people are always asking me, well, which one do you like better? Do you like living in, Miami better, in Los Angeles? What is it? And I said, I'm like the song, love the one you're with. That's so true.
At the top of the broadcast, I played a clip from the television crime drama The Shield, which ran from 2002 to 2008, where you portrayed the character of Claudette Wims. Did your appearance on that show, CCH, cement your place in American television?
Yes, without a doubt. And I'll tell you why. Prior to that show, I did what I was told. I did what I was directed to do. And I did that to the best of my ability. And that was enough for all the people around me. When I got Claudette, first of all, Claudette was written for a man, so it was already an unorthodox role to receive. And when I read for it, I had very specific instructions not to change the words so that it was man talk coming out of a woman's body. And I really wanted to see what that was like of a woman who found herself in with the boys' club. So it changed so much because it empowered other women in other places where they're the only woman there to move forward and do it in certain ways where you didn't have to be manly to get it done. And you didn't have to use feminine wiles to get it done. You just had to use your skills of the job that you had. And I loved that about it.
What kind of obstacles did you encounter?
Well, there's lots of people who feel that you can't do it. that you're not bright enough to figure out the mystery of things, that you couldn't handle an interrogation. It goes on and on. And I think just by showing the relationship that I create for something like that, women relate to it in their own lives. Wow, I could try that. I could do that. I've been doing this all along and I haven't been acknowledged. And so all these things sort of pile up. And as opposed to being a counselor, you end up being a shining example of what could be. And I think that's awesome.
What do you feel was the quote unquote blockage?
For Claudette?
Yes, and your interpretation of the character.
I think there is a boys' club, there is a girls' club, there is a social hierarchy in all of the things that we do. Not just, I can't get into the boys' room where decisions are made, but in all of the things that we do, we are tribal. We club up and we have to give you permission to enter. And I think one of the things that Claudette did is that she didn't know that was necessary. So she just forged ahead. But one of my favorite scenes is with Michael Chiklis, who comes in and all he wants to do is use a machine, finish the report. And she says, well, I'm using it right now. She's very off the cuff. And he says, well, I've got to get this thing done because I need to go out. And she goes, I'm writing my daughter when I finish the letter. So it had nothing to do with police business at all. But she just wanted him to know, you wait your turn. I'm here. Get back in line. And I thought, wow. To do it and not be part of police business was really like, this is how the boys play it. I'm playing it too. I love that.
That's power.
Yes. Snatched or otherwise.
Your film and television career spans from All That Jazz to Bagdad Cafe to ER to The Shield to Home Again to Avatar, just to name a few, and now NCIS New Orleans. What convinced you that you should not just be an actor, but an actor activist?
It wasn't that hard, but it dawned on me. First of all those names that you ran, there's decades involved in that and several different hair colors. So this is my final hair color. I think before I go to the grave. I've been at it so long. But many years ago, there was Miami Vice. And I remember that was maybe my fourth or fifth job. And I played a woman who was hooked on crack, and she sold one of her children for the money so that she could continue her habit. And I remember distinctly walking in the street and saying, oh my God, that's that lady who was like, sold a child for crack. They're just like that. And it just hurt me so much that playing at something became what I would call, people really believed it. And what it did was it made me realize the power of television. So once I realized that television had that much power where you could literally play a role that's pretend and people would look in the streets and kind of go, yeah, that's the way they are. And the one thing I realized was that you are not an individual actor as a Black person. You represent an entire society, which is completely frustrating for an artist because you're not free to create all these marvelous, horrific, lovely, wonderful, awful characters. I found myself in a place where I wanted to play characters that we did not see that often, and that would be women in authority, women who had a sense of themselves, women who could handle their business. And so I changed up after that role. And I don't know if I have time to say it, Bob, but I didn't work for a year. I kept getting the same scripts of degraded women, women beaten by their husbands. And I thought, no, you just hold out. And I was also a working Black actor. And even my agents at the time were confounded that I wouldn't take these other jobs that were offers. They just didn't get it, because they were living in such a privileged life that they didn't see these things as I saw them. And so I said, I will do it for a year. I'll go without for a year. And then literally a year came along and here came another offer. And it was a woman degraded by something else. And I read the entire script and I said, well, I don't want to play that woman, but I'd like to play the judge. And they were like, what? But you can't play the judge. That's not what you're known for. And I said, well, give me a chance. That's what I want to do. And they were embarrassed. They called the agent, the production company, and said, well, she doesn't want to read for the woman, but she would like to read for the judge. And it's like, well, what black female judge? Where are they? I mean, that doesn't reflect real life. And I said, break it. Give me the chance to do it. And I auditioned for it and I got the job, and that was LA Law.
In other words, they wanted to stigmatize you.
There is an ignorance that is pervasive in everything. You know, after that job, it was good for me too. I hunted every single judge, fire chief, police chief, you know, assistant mayor in every state in the land. And I had a list. And every time there was something that was sort of high profile, I said, of course I can play it. There's a fire chief in Boston, and I would throw up my list.
How often did you go against the grain where a director may want something portrayed in a certain direction and you felt that it would do you more justice to go in the opposite direction? Does that happen often?
It doesn't happen often anymore. But first of all, the person that I'm true to is the character. And I think it is my Guyanese background or any kind of Caribbean background where I do use the soft approach. And so I said, I always compliment them, say, oh, wow, that's an incredible idea. And I had this other idea too. So maybe on the third take, we could do my idea. And I never do the director's idea badly. I do it to the best of my ability. Then I do what I call the truth.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Now that NCIS New Orleans has resumed production after being interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the back-to-back hurricanes in that region, what are some of the challenges that yourself, other cast members, and crew are faced with making that concerted effort to stay safe?
It's army work, to put it mildly. We are tested 3 times a week. We live in what we call pods. So there are actors that I would see normally back and forth in a food line or that I no longer see because they're not in my pod or in my area. And even in hair and makeup, which is like the big place for camaraderie and what did you do last weekend and blah, blah, blah. It's all now separated booths. And they are really determined to keep the 250 or so people as safe as they can. And, the moment somebody tests positive, they're immediately sent home. And one of the things that I really appreciate the entire industry is now doing is that if you didn't work in this industry, you would just be replaced. That's okay. We'll get somebody to step in for you. But there's a kind of guarantee that you will have your job. You go through the quarantine days because a lot of times you tell somebody, it's like, I was at my cousin's house and the little kid, the mother called me and said they tested positive. So because you were amongst those people, then you'll have to stay away from work too. So beforehand, I think a lot of people would just not mention it because that job is so essential. And now they have the confidence to know that they're keeping people safe. They will not lose their job and we'll all be fine in the end. So it's been tough.
As the medical examiner on the show, I would imagine that the creators and the writers did not have much difficulty addressing the current global crisis for your character.
Can you imagine? It sort of fell in my lap in the most horrible of ways. And they chose my character to really express the feelings of the people, I think. There are 2 things that are wonderful about it. We're living in a city that was highly impacted in the beginning. And we couldn't pretend that, let's just write a story. First of all, every location is shut down or you can't go through there or these facilities are not available. So you had to be part of the story. That was the first thing. And then I think it was very empathetic of the writers who are, in California, not aware of how a city that doesn't have as much money, doesn't run as efficiently, it's not loaded, can't get from point A to point B as easily, how those people are impacted. And it's an entertainment city. It depends on people to run. So it was, I think, a really good idea to show folks that what happens when you have a monoculture.
You and your late husband, Boubacar Kone, founded and built the Musée Boribana, the first museum of contemporary art in Senegal, West Africa.
Yeah.
There are several types of art. CCH, how would you classify emotional art?
Okay. Well, I say, and this is very me, I say emotional art is when you look at a painting or a piece of sculpture and you feel something visceral. It hits a memory button, whether it is conscious or not. there is something in it that gives you an emotion of pleasure, of sadness, of, I feel like that too. It gives you a connection that is human. And I feel that the art of the African diaspora, so the Caribbean, America, Africa, is what I call the newspaper. It does not do art just for art's sake. Still, it does art because it wishes to discuss the human condition. And I'm really happy about that because I can look at a huge canvas with a small black dot and somebody can tell me it's the despair of a particular child on a certain day. They can give me all the information, but I'm still looking at a black dot that doesn't take me emotionally to another place. This painting behind me, it is of a mermaid caught in a net with all the other fish and debris of the sea, the detritus of the sea. And it's only one mermaid, but you'll see several hands and faces because you get the feeling that she's in there fighting to get herself free. And so that kind of emotional moments for me, so when I walk into a room and a painting does, wow, that's the impact that I wanted. And I can't resist, Bob.
Could you share with us the connectedness between your film and television art form and your elaborate art collection?
I suppose we all try to separate ourselves in certain genres, but I find no difference between music, between visual art, between theatrical arts, because they're all showing you a picture of the human condition of some kind. And once I see that picture, it can be moving, it can be still, it can be sound. I can sit here in my kitchen and be roused by a sound. I can remember as a kid, my mother being in the kitchen and she just stopped and she says, "Children, come. There's a black person on television." I think it was colored at the time. "There's a colored person on television." We at that time would be, how did she know? But she knew the timbre of the black voice and whether they were speaking or singing. And it was such a rare thing that we would gather as if we had all gone to church and look at this thing. And I also remember Shostakovich at the Carnegie Hall when I must have been about 13 years, come home for a holiday. And I was sort of like, "Mummy," I was very English at the time, "why are we going to see him?" And she says, "Well, he's quite mature and he won't be around for much longer. And I want you to see what some of the great men do." And just the fact that she had that in mind, we used to call her the ambulance chaser. I saw Miriam Anderson with her at one of the very last concert with Grace Bumbry and at Carnegie Hall as well. And so she was like a great tracker of Africans that did great things. She believed in us.
In Brazil, there's a huge amount of prejudice against women, and against Black women, it's even worse. Nayara Justino, a dark-skinned model, a dancer, and actress, got her first role in a soap opera and was cast as a slave mother. As she said, quote, "Her destiny is trapped by pain, but one day abuse must turn into hope," unquote. She subsequently entered the Carnival Queen competition and won.
Well,
One reporter commented that, quote, "If they pick a Black woman, she would only attract attention," unquote. Ms. Justino was ridiculed after winning that contest. Recently, I shared that video with you. Please share with us your personal experience in Brazil relating to your skin tone.
So, beautiful young man. I was in Brazil for Bagdad Cafe, won the foreign prize there. And a young man had been escorting me around, and we just were having such a wonderful time. And he said to me, "I really love you. Too bad there's not enough cream in your coffee." I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was like, what? But in fact, this is very, very typical. And there's a stigma that is insane there where Black folks are literally trying to breed up lighter, to make babies with, men of lighter colors and all of that so that they're acceptable. And they need a radical influx of Black is beautiful. They need a major, the word is that I'm looking for is when you bring the whole family together and you do what is that word? But that's what they need. I'll get it in a second. Not an interrogation, but they need that's when you interrupt those thoughts. I'll find that word 10 minutes after we've stopped talking, Bob. But they need a real huge infusion of self-love.
Then where did he see your beauty?
Well, I had a great daddy who always said, hey, look at that cute one. And, my dad would say things like, look at her bottom. I could put a tray on that and she could take it upstairs. It was never an insult. It was like, okay, so she's got a high apple bottom. Okay. I have very large eyes, and it was greatly reflected like, you big doe-eyed girl, you big-eyed girl. I don't remember ever seeing or hearing anything within family that was negative. So my foundation was very positive. When I went to England, I remember one of my relatives saying, I was very fair as a child, and then the sun and I took a long time to get the color to come in. And I remember this relative saying, oh my God, oh, you get so black. And that was even then not oh, did that happen? Oh, right. No, I think I've been this color for a while. Auntie, uncle, Mrs., whatever. And it was the first time that I saw prejudice within ourselves, which I find so disconcerting, that we have bought the medicine hook, line, and sinker, and we've bought what we've been told we are, and we have not made up our own minds in what we are. But Ron Bobb-Semple, as old as I am, if you touch my skin, you will melt because it's the softest, smoothest, most lovely thing.
Okay.
That's what I say.
On a little more serious note, I just want to go back very briefly to that cream in your coffee comment that was made. The fact that bleaching has now become so prevalent in the Caribbean. A lot of young women feel that, that they have to be lighter to be attractive. And it's a serious situation that is going on in Jamaica, in Guyana, and I'm sure in other parts of the Caribbean.
It's worldwide, and it's not only Black people. The Asians and the Indians are also bleaching themselves. This desire to be white, which suggests the word fair, which suggests the word beauty, it all is in the packet.
Acceptable.
Yes. And in places like Jamaica, it is not just women. It's men and women there. That was an unusual thing to see. And in some parts of Africa, there are men also who do it because they feel that they will get ahead, that the Black man is feared, the PR on Black men is so horrendous, so deep. The desire to disempower him is so necessary because of the power that he actually wields mentally and physically. He is indeed a different brawn. He's a faster, swifter, heavier brawn. And his intelligence, because he's, when healthy, can be spectacular. And these are things that people don't want to see when I'm in charge, when I'm running the show now, when there's 5,000 of you and there's the three of us who have come from Mother England, who have actually persuaded you that, yes, it's 100 degrees, but you will wear a wool suit and you will carry a big handkerchief and mop your head and wear a hat and wear a tie in a hot and sweaty country where we bought into all of these things that the conqueror has created. And then I think of all the other conquered states where they end up having won at last, they end up wearing and looking like what their conquerors used to look like, because that was their sense of power. So I guess our sense of power has to do with lightness as well.
Many of our listeners may not be aware that CCH Pounder, in addition to being a tremendous actor and an art collector, is also a recording artist. We will wrap with a cut from your CD, Smoke the Hookah. What's the backstory behind those poetic words?
Oh, that's so funny. Well, actually, it has so little to do with me because I had a friend who wanted to make a record and he just loved the sound of my voice. And he said, let's do some song. I said, well, I don't sing, I mean, one of the things that I can seriously claim is that I do not sing. He said, but your voice is so musical. And I said, okay, so that's how Smoke the Hookah came along. And all of the songs are spoken. People think I'm singing, which is really funny. There you have it.
Carol Christine Hilaria Pounder, it is always a pleasure chatting with you and continued success in all your endeavors, including a lengthy run of NCIS New Orleans. Thank you for allowing us to just have a peek into your illustrious career.
Thank you, Ron Bob. It's very kind. It's very kind.
And thank you for
2021. Okay, I'm looking forward to it for all of us.
Absolutely.
So innocently, we learn to take what we need. Forgive us for our greed. Let's dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. Rome was not built in a day. Time stands still for no one, they say. Even you will pass the same way. Dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. Confucius, great prophecies. Fall now to their knees. Watch their palms bleed. Dance. Time of man-made disease, fall like leaves from the trees. Now there's only frozen streams. Dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. It's black and white, cut and dry. Show me a minority who hasn't suffered or cry. Living in a land where freedom calls. Dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. Smoke the hookah and dance. In a land of poverty, the hungry now feed off of their dreams, waiting for the world to turn to dance.
Thank you for spending some time with us. If you are so inclined, you can subscribe to these podcasts and donate to them by clicking on the Support the Show button on the website. Please continue to protect yourself and your loved ones during this global pandemic by observing all protocols. Be safe, be strong, and be aware. I'm Ron Bobb-Semple.
No, you're Marcus Garvey.